All right, so today we're diving into something a little different. We're looking at Ken Jeong's return to Hot Ones.
Hmm.
And it's not just about the spice this time.
Right.
We got the interview transcript. And, it's a chance to kind of pick apart what makes him tick, both as a comedian and just as a person.
Well, it's interesting. When you look at Ken Jeong, you think about his career, his trajectory. It's not typical at all.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a guy, he was a practicing physician before he was, in The Hangover. So right away, you're dealing with someone who clearly embraces risk
Yeah.
and defying expectations.
And that totally comes through in this interview. I mean, the way he just roasts Sean Evans, right? Even though this is his second time on the show,
Hmm.
it's like he's not just trying to be funny. There's almost like a strategy behind it, right?
Right. There's this idea in comedy. It's called the tension and release principle. You create a sense of tension by doing something like, playfully roasting the host. And then you release it with a joke or a charming quip.
Hmm.
It's a way to actually build rapport with the audience, taking them on this little emotional roller coaster.
So it's not just him being a goofball. There's like comedic theory at play.
Exactly.
But it's interesting, though, because the roasting never feels mean-spirited, right?
Right.
It's like they genuinely enjoy ribbing each other.
Yeah, and that goes back to his emotional intelligence, like
Yeah.
that ability to understand and manage emotions, both your own and the people around you.
Hmm.
And that's so crucial in comedy, especially in improv, where you have to constantly read the room and adjust your performance based on, the energy you're getting.
So we see, like, the comedic chops. He's got the emotional smarts. But what about that embracing challenges thing? We know he's not a fan of spicy food. So why do this twice? Why put himself through this?
Well, I think it goes back to his background. I mean, here's someone who's achieved success in multiple fields. You got medicine and you got comedy.
Mm.
Both incredibly demanding, competitive. So this suggests a personality that really thrives on pushing boundaries, testing limits.
It's almost like he uses discomfort as fuel for his creativity.
Hmm.
Now, there's this moment in the interview where he talks about his wife. So after his first appearance, his wife, like, casually eats a plate of the same wings.
Oh, wow.
Totally unfazed, right? It's played for laughs, but I can't help but wonder, is there more to it? Like, is it just a funny anecdote, or is there something else going on?
I think it could be a sign of his confidence,
Right.
not just in himself, but in his ability to connect with people, even when he's being vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
or, let's face it, in pain.
Yeah.
He's showing he doesn't take himself too seriously, and that makes him more relatable.
That's true. That's true.
No.
Now, there's this other part where he diagnoses Sean Evans as boring,
Okay.
complete with this, like, exaggerated eye roll.
Yeah.
Hilarious. But is it all improv? Or is there some premeditation there? Like, how much is planned versus in the moment?
I think it's likely a mix of both because, skilled improvisers, they're constantly observing and analyzing their environment. They pick up on these subtle cues
Mm-hmm.
and then they use those to fuel their comedic bits. But, at the same time, they also come prepared. It's like a mental toolbox of jokes, characters they can draw from.
Yeah. So he's not just winging it, pun intended.
Right.
But it really makes you appreciate the skill involved in comedic performance, especially under pressure, right?
Yeah.
And speaking of pressure, let's talk about the Crazy Rich Asians discussion. The psychologist's theory about its popularity on airplanes. What's your take on that?
Well, the psychologist suggested that the film's escapist nature
Yeah.
provides comfort during the stress of flying.
Yeah.
Now, I find that intriguing, but wouldn't you say that it could also be related to the limited entertainment options you have on a plane?
Right. You're stuck with whatever's available, so maybe it's less about deep psychological needs and more about just convenience.
Yeah, exactly. It just shows how important it is to consider multiple perspectives and not jump to conclusions based on a single theory.
Mm-hmm.
But let's not discount what Jeong had to say about the appeal of the film, too, right?
Yeah, he talks about these beautiful visuals, the compelling story, strong performances, and of course that escapist element.
Right.
But what really stuck out to me was his anecdote about meeting Michelle Yeoh, Aquafina, all those other cast members on set. You could really feel the joy he had working on that film.
Absolutely. And that speaks volumes about his ability to build rapport, create a positive work environment.
Mm-hmm.
He's not just focused on his own performance.
Right.
He seems genuinely invested in the success of the project as a whole.
And that collaborative spirit really shines through in the next segment, right?
Yeah.
Where he's answering questions from those adorable kids from Common Threads. Oh my gosh, you can just feel the room glowing with warmth and kindness.
Yeah, it's a fascinating contrast, isn't it?
Yeah.
To his earlier roasting of Sean Evans.
Right.
It suggests that he's really good at tailoring his communication style to fit his audience,
Hmm.
which again points to a high level of emotional intelligence.
I'm sensing a theme here.
Yeah.
This guy is good at connecting with people,
Right.
whether it's through playful banter or genuine warmth. And it makes you wonder, is this something he consciously cultivates? Or is it just an innate part of who he is?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And one that we'll explore further as we, delve deeper into this interview.
Yeah.
But first, we have to talk about that incredibly touching moment at the end where he gets emotionally expressing his gratitude to Sean Evans.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That got me a little choked up. I'm not going to lie. It's
Yeah.
like all that bravado and quick wit, it just kind of melts away.
Yeah.
And you see this incredibly sincere, almost vulnerable side to him.
And that vulnerability, I think, is key to understanding his appeal.
Mm.
It's a reminder that even the most successful, seemingly confident people, they have moments of doubt, insecurity, gratitude.
Yeah.
It humanizes him in a way that actually makes his accomplishments all the more impressive.
It's like if he can achieve all of this while still being so down to earth and appreciative, then maybe, just maybe, we can too, right?
Exactly. He becomes a role model, not just for aspiring comedians, but for anyone who's ever felt like an imposter, struggled to find their voice. And that, I think, is where the real power of this interview lies.
Well said. But before we get too deep into all that, let's take a closer look at some specific moments in the interview, that reveal even more about Ken Jeong's unique approach to comedy and really to life.
Okay, so, picking up where we left off, that vulnerability from Jeong at the end,
Yeah.
it's powerful stuff,
Yeah.
It's like a reminder that authenticity, that's what resonates, especially in comedy.
Yeah, for sure.
Because the audience, they can sniff out anything that feels forced or, insincere.
It's like he's letting us in on a secret, right?
Yeah.
Even Mr. Chow gets nervous, gets emotional sometimes. And I think that makes his comedic persona even more effective.
Oh, yeah.
Because we know there's real depth behind those outrageous characters he plays.
Right. That duality, being able to go from over-the-top humor to genuine emotion, that's a hallmark of great comedic actors.
Yeah.
You think about, Robin Williams, Jim Carrey, even someone like Melissa McCarthy. They can make you laugh hysterically one minute and then just, bam, break your heart the next.
There's this moment in the interview where he talks about his early days, right?
Oh.
Performing at clubs like Charlie Goodnight's and Tootsie's in Raleigh-Durham.
Mm-hmm.
And he mentions being thrilled to get even a couple of laughs out of a 5-minute set.
Right.
It's a far cry from sold-out arenas and Hollywood blockbusters.
It's a classic example of that 10,000-hour rule.
Right.
It suggests that mastery in any field, it requires deliberate practice, a willingness to embrace those failures. It's part of the process.
But it's interesting, though, because at the same time, he was also pursuing medicine, right?
Right.
He even says if the hangover hadn't happened, he probably would have continued practicing.
Oh, wow.
While still doing stand-up on the side.
Mm.
So what drives someone to pursue those diverse passions? It's got to be more than just talent.
Well, it could be what psychologists call multipotentiality, right?
Okay.
That's the ability to excel in multiple fields, having that wide range of interests.
So he's not just multi-talented, he might actually be wired to thrive on multiple passions.
Yeah.
And that makes his decision to eventually choose comedy even more interesting. He wasn't just following a whim.
Why?
It was a calculated risk to pursue what really ignited him.
Exactly. And we see that risk-taking throughout his career,
Yeah.
leaving medicine for comedy, taking on roles like Mr. Chow.
Pushing boundaries.
Yeah, he consistently challenges expectations.
He's not afraid to make people uncomfortable, kind of shock them out of their complacency.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes his comedy so effective. It's not just about telling jokes.
Wow.
It's about challenging norms and making us see the world differently.
And that fearlessness, I think, comes from his years of training in medicine. As a doctor,
Yeah.
you're dealing with high-pressure situations constantly,
Yeah.
making life-or-death decisions.
Yeah.
That fosters a sense of resilience, a willingness to embrace the unknown.
So his medical background might have inadvertently prepared him for show business.
Right.
It's fascinating how those seemingly disparate experiences have shaped his comedic style.
Yeah, it's not just about being funny. It's about being bold, unconventional, unapologetically himself.
And that authenticity, that's what makes him so relatable.
Yeah.
He's not putting on a persona, he's letting his true personality shine through.
Flaws and all.
And that's something we can all learn from,
Absolutely.
whether we're aspiring comedians or just trying to navigate life's complexities.
Now, there's this part in the interview. He's describing the apple caraway hot sauce,
Yeah.
and he actually tries to help out the editor. He's like, just go straight to apple caraway. It's a small thing,
Right.
but it shows his playful nature, that ability to find humor in the mundane.
Even while he's in pain.
Yeah, even while enduring intense spice, he steps back, finds amusement.
Right.
That lightheartedness is so disarming.
Especially in a setting designed to push people to their limit.
Exactly. It's like he's not taking the challenge too seriously, which makes it all the more entertaining.
Yeah.
And it brings us back to that dynamic between him and Sean Evans.
Right.
Throughout the interview, it's this playful banter. It feels so natural.
Unscripted.
Yeah, like they're old friends ribbing each other.
It's a testament to their comedic timing, their ability to build that rapport.
There's mutual respect, admiration.
Even though they're constantly trying to one-up each other with jokes, insults.
And it reaches this peak when Jeong gets his diagnosis from Sean.
Oh, yeah.
Called out for being extra polite and kind right at the end, struggling with those hot wings.
Yeah.
And his response, classic Ken Jeong.
What'd he say?
He goes, go explicit yourself. Cheers.
Oh, my God.
Defiance and humor.
Perfect.
And it just underscores his refusal to take himself too seriously, even in discomfort.
It's that ability to laugh at himself. Embrace the absurdity. It's endearing. It reminds me that sometimes the best way to deal with pain, whether physical or emotional, is to find the humor in it.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And it leads us to another important aspect of his personality. Humility.
Mm-hmm.
He seems genuinely surprised, humbled by his success.
Yeah.
He even jokes about how he still can't believe he has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
And when he talks about passing by his star on Hollywood Boulevard and giving it a little wave.
Oh, I love that.
So charming, so unexpected.
It shows his grounded nature, his refusal to let fame inflate his ego.
He hasn't forgotten where he came from.
No.
The struggles he endured.
And that makes his accomplishments even more impressive.
It's a reminder that success doesn't have to come at the expense of kindness, gratitude, and a genuine connection to others.
Speaking of connections, let's not forget the charitable aspect of this episode.
Right.
Jeong went through all that pain, to support Common Threads.
Yeah.
That organization that provides food and nutrition education for kids in underserved communities.
Inspiring to see him use his platform for such a worthy cause.
Mm-hmm.
He repeatedly highlights the organization, encouraging viewers to donate.
Yeah, and it's clear that his support is genuine.
It adds another layer to, understanding him as a person.
Yeah.
He's not just a comedian.
No.
He's someone who genuinely cares about making a difference.
And that resonates with audiences.
It's a reminder that we can all use our talents, our influence, to contribute to something greater.
Now, as we go into the final part of this deep dive, let's consider how all these seemingly disparate pieces of Ken Jeong's personality, the humor, vulnerability, the humility, the drive, how do they all come together?
Right.
What makes him such a compelling figure in comedy?
It's amazing. Even while he's sweating, struggling through those wings, he still has that warmth and humility.
It really comes to, especially when you think about Mr. Chow, right?
Right.
Like such a wild, over-the-top character.
Mm-hmm.
But even in those moments of, outrageous comedy, there's these little glimpses of vulnerability and even sweetness underneath all that chaos.
It makes you realize he's not a one-trick pony, right?
Right.
He can do those big, larger-than-life characters, but he can also bring depth to roles that require, more emotional range.
There's this acting theory called the magic if, where you ask yourself, what if I was in this situation? How would I react?
Mm-hmm.
And that takes a deep understanding of emotions, right?
Yeah.
You have to tap into those feelings authentically.
So even when he's playing Mr. Chow, he's not just going through the motions.
Wow.
He's bringing his own experiences, his emotional intelligence to the role. That's probably why it works so well.
Right. He's not afraid to push those boundaries, make people uncomfortable, but he also knows how to connect with them on an emotional level.
And that's a tough thing to do in comedy.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance. You're pushing the envelope, but also maintaining empathy for the audience.
Now, there's this part where he talks about his Hollywood Walk of Fame star
Uh-huh.
and how it's next to Lucy Liu's and Anna May Wong's of...
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's powerful.
Hmm.
It shows the evolution of Asian American representation in Hollywood.
Right.
The strides that have been made. Anna May Wong, she was a trailblazer. Faced so many challenges back then, paved the way for actors like Lucy Liu, Ken Jeong.
And you can tell he recognizes that, right?
Yeah.
The significance of what he's achieved.
Uh-huh.
He even mentions Anna May Wong was the first Asian American actress to get a star on the Walk of Fame.
Wow.
It's like he's carrying the torch, you know?
Yeah, he's aware of his cultural identity,
Mm-hmm.
and he's committed to using his platform to advocate for diversity.
And that message goes beyond comedy, right?
Absolutely. He's
Uh-huh.
breaking down those barriers, paving the way for future generations.
And he's doing it with humor,
Hmm.
humility, a whole lot of heart. Which brings us back to this idea of authenticity.
Yeah.
Whether he's talking about his childhood, thanking his fans, or, eating those wings, he comes across as so genuine, relatable.
And I think that's why people connect with him. He doesn't shy away from being himself, flaws and all.
Mhm.
And in a world that often feels so, superficial and curated,
Yeah,
that authenticity is refreshing.
inspiring.
It's okay to be vulnerable. Embrace those imperfections.
And find the humor in the challenges, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well said. I think that's a perfect way to wrap this up.
Yeah.
Ken Jeong's journey is a testament to hard work, perseverance, and just the courage to be yourself.
Even when it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. He's a reminder that success doesn't have to mean sacrificing kindness, humility, and connection.
And sometimes the best way to deal with the heat, literally and metaphorically, is to find the humor and just keep laughing.
So listeners, we hope this deep dive into Ken Jeong's Hot Ones interview has inspired you to, embrace your own journey.
With all its spice and sweetness.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep laughing.